actually, just for the sake of it, we're going to take a little bit of a detour right now from doing quiz chat stuff. Instead, we're literally just going to do an entire Wikipedia reading of cake. I have absolutely no idea why. We're going to do an entire video about cake. This entire video is going to be about cake. Oh, we like cake though. Oh, do we just like cake? I just like cake. We like cake. I just love a cake. Give me cake. I fancy cake. So anyway, with that being said, I don't want to hear anyone rustling. This is not an excuse to eat. So, cake. For others' uses, see cake disambiguation. Cake slice redirects here for the item of cutlery. See cake and pie server. Oh, pie. Oh God. Cake is a form of sweet... I can nudge in there. There we go. Cake is a form of sweet food made from flour, sugar, and other ingredients. Wait, yeah, exactly. That is usually baked. Usually, I've never seen technically a cake completely made out of raw flour before, but there's always a first time. In their oldest forms, cakes were modifications of bread. It's the cake the bread GTI that they used to call it. But cakes now cover a wide range of preparations that can be simple or elaborate, and that share features with other desserts such as pastries, meringues, custards, and pies. The most common used cake ingredients include flour, sugar, eggs, butter or oil, or margarine, and liquid and leavening agents, I should say. Is that even how you're supposed to? Okay. Such as baking soda or baking powder. Common additional ingredients and flavorings were included dried, candied or fresh fruit, nuts, cocoa, and extracts such as vanilla, with numerous substitutions for the primary ingredients. Cakes can also be filled with fruit preserves, nuts, or dessert sauces like pastry cream, iced with buttercream or other icings, and decorated with marzipan, piped borders, or candied fruit. Cake is often served as a celebratory dish on ceremonial occasions, such as weddings, anniversaries, and birthdays. Sometimes funerals, but then again, it's not exactly in great taste. Well, the cake is, but... There are countless cake recipes. How about you would have thought they would have actually tried to have counted them, but never mind. Some are bread-like, some are rich and elaborate, and many are centuries old. Cake making is no longer a complicated procedure, while at one time considerable labour went into cake making, particularly the whisking of egg foams. Baking equipment and directions have been simplified so that even the most amateur of cooks may bake a cake. Exactly, and don't worry guys, we will be getting to them at one point. History. The term cake has a long history. The word itself is of Viking origin from the Old Norse word kaka. The ancient Greeks called cake plakus, which was derived from the word for flat plakeios. It was baked using flour mixed with eggs, milk, nuts, and honey. They also had a cake called satura, which was a flat, heavy cake. During the Roman period, the name for cake became placenta, which was derived from the Greek term. A placenta was baked on a pastry base or inside a pastry case. The Greeks invented beer as a leavener, frying fritters in olive oil, and cheesecakes using goat's milk. In ancient Rome, the basic bread dough was sometimes enriched with butter, eggs, and honey, which produced a sweet and cake-like baked good. Latin poet Ovid refers to his and his brother's birthday party and cake in the first book of Exile, Trista. Early cakes in England were also essentially bread. The most obvious differences between a cake and bread were the round, flat shape of the cakes and the cooking method, which turned cakes over once while cooking, while bread was left upright throughout the baking process. Sponge cakes leavened with beaten eggs originated during the Renaissance period, possibly in Spain. Cake mixes. During the Great Depression, there was a surplus of molasses, and the need to provide easily made food to millions of economically depressed people in the United States. One company patented cake bread mix to deal with this economic situation, and thereby established the first line of cake in a box. In doing so, cake as it is known today became a mass-produced good rather than a home or bakery-made specialty. Later, during the post-war boom, other American companies, notably General Mills, developed this idea further, marketing cake mix on the principle of convenience, especially to housewives. When sales dropped heavily in the 1950s, marketers discovered that baking cakes, once a task at which housewives could exercise skill and creativity, had become dispiriting. This was a period in American ideological history when women retired from the wartime labor force, were confined to the domestic sphere, while still exposed to the blossoming consumeration of the United States. This inspired psychologist Ernest Ditcher to find a solution to the cake mix problem in the frosting. Yes, guys, psychologists are getting involved about the subject of cake. This is how serious the history of cake is. You weren't thinking about that when you first woke up, did you? And I've been awake for exactly 10 minutes now, and we're doing a history of cake. Since making the cake was so simple, housewives and other in-home cake makers could expend their creative energy on cake decorating, inspired by, among other things, photographers in magazines of elaborately decorated cakes. Ever since cake in a box has become a state of supermarkets and is complemented with frosting in a can. Varieties. Cakes are broadly divided into several categories, based primarily on ingredients and mixing techniques. Although clear examples of the difference between cake and bread are easy to find, the precise classification has always been elusive. For example, banana bread may be properly considered either a quick bread or a cake. Butter cakes are made from creamed butter, sugar, eggs, and flour. They rely on the combination of butter and sugar beaten for an extended time to incorporate air into the batter. A classic pound cake is made with a pound each of butter, eggs, flour, and sugar. Baking powder is in many butter cakes, such as a Victoria sponge. The ingredients are sometimes mixed without creaming the butter, using recipes for simple and quick cakes. Sponge cakes, or foam cakes, are made from whipped eggs, sugar, and flour. They rely primarily on trapped air in a protein They rely primarily on trapped air in a protein matrix, generally of beaten eggs, to provide leavening, sometimes with a bit of baking powder or other chemical leaven added as insurance. Sponge cakes are thought to be the oldest cakes made without yeast. An angel food cake, for example, is a white sponge cake that uses only the whites of the eggs and is traditionally baked in a tube pan. The French genessoise is a sponge cake that includes clarified butter. Highly decorated sponge cakes with lavish toppings are sometimes called gâteaux, the French word for cake. Chiffon cakes are sponge cakes with vegetable oil which add moistness. Chocolate cakes are butter cakes, sponge cakes, or other cakes flavored with melted chocolate or cocoa powder. German chocolate cake is a variety of a chocolate cake. Fudge cakes are chocolate cakes that can... What was the point of me reading that? No shit that a chocolate cake is going to have chocolate in it. No, we're going to put peanut butter in the cake. Mind you, peanut butter and chocolate in the cake is just... It's something that you can't just begin to describe unless you've tasted it. Coffee cakes is generally thought of as a cake to serve with coffee or tea at breakfast or a coffee break. Some types use yeast as a leavening agent, while others use baking soda or baking powder. These cakes often have a crumb topping called a streusel or a light glazed drizzle. Mind you, coffee cakes are it's an absolute treat. I think it's even better than, chocolate and peanut butter. It just tastes so, the difference is fantastic. Baked flourless cakes include baked cheesecakes and flourless chocolate cakes. Cheesecakes, despite their name, aren't cakes at all. Oh, cheesecakes are custard pies, with a filling made mostly of some form of cheese, often cream cheese, mascarpone, ricotta, or the like, and they have very little flour added, although a flour-based or graham cracker crust must be used. Cheesecakes are also very old, with evidence of honey-sweetened cakes dating back to the days of ancient Greece. Butter or oil layer cakes include most of the traditional cakes used as birthday cakes, and those sold as packaged cakes. Baking powder or bicarbonate of soda is used to provide both lift and a moist texture. Many flavorings and ingredients may be added. Examples include devil's food cake, carrot cake, and banana bread. Yeast cakes are the oldest and are very similar to yeast bread. Such cakes are often Such cakes are often very traditional in form and include such pastries as babka and stollen. Some varieties of cakes are widely available in the form of cake mixes, wherein some of the ingredients, usually flour, sugar, flavoring, baking powder, and sometimes some form of fat, are pre-mixed into the batter, and the cook needs add only a few extra ingredients, usually eggs, water, and sometimes vegetable oil or butter. While the diversity of represented styles is limited, cake mixes do provide an easy and readily available homemade option for cooks who are not accomplished bakers. And now, literally just for the benefit of everyone at home, here are just some cake varieties, because this is what we came for, ladies and gentlemen. Gooey butter cake, German chocolate cake, strawberry cake as represented by Leia. That looks like a work of art, that does. Chocolate cake pops with sprinkles. Many steamed, a mainly steamed sponge cake. Like, do you remember at school and you were given desserts with your dinner, and this is the sort of thing they would serve you, with literally just like a very thin layer of like icing on top, and it's literally just like an entire cube of sponge you were like half served. Strawberry mouse cake, carrot cake, and sponge cake. Look at all these. I would eat all of these. I'm just literally putting it out there. Special purpose cakes. Cakes may be classified according to the occasion for which they are intended. For example, wedding cakes, birthday cakes, cakes for First Communion, Christmas cakes, Halloween cakes, and Passover plava, a type of sponge cake sometimes made with matzo meal, are all identified primarily according to the celebration they are intended to accompany. The cutting of a wedding cake constitutes a social ceremony. In some cultures, the ancient Roman marriage ritual of confarreatio originated in the sharing of a cake. Particular types of cake may be associated with particular events, such as stollen or chocolate log at Christmas, babka and simnel cake at Easter, or moon cake. There has been a long tradition of decorating an iced cake at Christmas time. Other cakes associated with Christmas include chocolate log and mince pies. I can't stand mince, but nothing on earth will ever get me to eat a mince pie, even if it was going to save my life. A Lancashire courting cake is a fruit-filled cake baked by a fiancée for her betrothed. Don't know why anyone would convince anyone from Lancashire to do that, but okay. The cake has been described as somewhat between a firm sponge with a greater proportion of flour to fat and eggs than a Victorian sponge cake, and a shortbread base, and was proved to the pride to be's baking skills. Oh boy. Traditionally, it is a two-layered cake filled and topped with strawberries or raspberries and whipped cream. And you can see right here, cake made from a baby shower with edible decorations, and examples of edible art. Just like, and is that meant to be someone from like the Muppets or something like that? Well, either way, just hey, you know what, edible, you know, it's what I guys, when I was about like 13 years old, I was me and my family were in Egypt for like a week holiday, and I straight up remembered that there was this enormous cake that was served in the buffet, and I just straight up took off one of the petals on the side and just ate it, and people will look at me like, dude, you're eating plastic. And I said, no, it's perfectly edible. And it was like rock candy, but perfectly edible. And despite literally my sister like took one petal, and then nobody else went near it. Everybody thought I was taking the mick by eating plastic. Shapes. Cakes are frequently described according to their physical form. Cakes may be small and intended for individual consumption. Larger cakes may be made to be sliced and served as part of a meal or social function. Common shapes include bun cakes, cake balls, conceal such as a crenasque, cupcakes and medallones, which are both sized for a single person, layer cakes, frequently baked in a spring form pan and decorated, sheet cakes, simple flat rectangular cakes baked in sheet pans, and a Swiss roll. Just sheet cakes are actually not bad. I've never had anything like a cake ball before, but that looks. A croissant is an example of that looks so. I don't even know where you would even begin to try and eat that. And a de Bourse tort is a older form of layered cake. That's not bad. That's really not bad. Cake flour. Special cake flour with a high starch to gluten ratio is made from fine textured, soft, low protein wheat. It is strongly bleached and compared to all-purpose flour. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. You're eating bleach if you're a cake fan. Cake flour tends to result in cakes with a lighter, less dense texture. Therefore, it is frequently specified to preferred in cakes meant to be soft, light, and or bright white, such as angel food cake. However, if cake flour is called for, a substitute can be made by replacing a small percentage of all-purpose flour with cornstarch or removing 2 tablespoons from each cup of all-purpose flour. Some recipes explicitly specify or permit all-purpose flour, notably where a firmer or denser cake texture is desired. Cooking. A cake can fail to bake properly, which is called failing or falling. In a cake that falls, parts may sink or flatten because it was baked at a temperature that is too low or too hot. When it has been underbaked and when placed in an oven that is too hot at the beginning of the baking process, the use of excessive amounts of sugar, flour, fat, or leavening can also cause a cake to fall. A cake can also fall when subjected to cool air that enters an oven when the oven door is opened during the cooking process. Cake decoration. Oh my goodness. A finished cake is often enhanced by covering it with icing or frosting, and toppings such as sprinkles, which are also known as jimmies. I've never heard sprinkles technically called jimmies before, but there you are. In certain parts of the United States, and hundreds of thousands in the United... Okay, that makes sense. The frosting is usually made from powdered icing sugar, sometimes a fat or some sort of milk or cream, and often flavorings such as vanilla extract or cocoa powder. Some decorators used a round fondant icing. Commercial bakeries tend to use lard for the fat, and often whip the lard to introduce air bubbles. This makes the icing light and spreadable. Home bakers use either lard, butter, margarine, or some combination thereof. Sprinkles are some firm pieces of sugar and oils that are coloured with food colouring. In the late 20th century, new cake decorating products became available to the public. These included specialized sprinkles and even methods to print pictures and transfer images onto a cake. Special tools are needed for more complex cake decorating, such as piping bags and various piping tips, syringes, and embossing mats. To use a piping bag or syringe, a piping tip is attached to the bag and used as using a copier. The bag or syringe is partially filled with icing, which is sometimes coloured, using different piping tips and various techniques. A cake decorator can make many different designs. Basic decorating tips include open star, closed star, basket weave, round, drop flower, leaf, multi, petal, and speciality tips. An embossing mat is used to create embossed effects. A cake turntable that cakes are spun around may also be used in cake decoration. Royal icing, marzipan, or a less sweet version known as almond paste, fondant icing, also known as sugar paste, and buttercream are used as covering icings and to create decorations. Floral sugarcraft or wired sugared flowers are also an important part of cake decoration. Cakes for special occasions such as wedding cakes are traditionally rich fruit cakes or occasionally Mendelian cakes. They are covered with marzipan and icing using royal icing or sugar paste. They are finished with piping borders made with royal icing and adorned with a piping massage, wired sugar flowers, hand-formed fondant flowers, marzipan fruit, pipe flowers, or crystallized fruits or flowers such as grapes or violets. And we get even more decorated examples, garnished with strawberries, a single slice, but just look at that texture right there. Chocolate cake, look at just birthday cake in the shape of a lace moniteur with an egg in its mouth, and just various toppings of like licorice, all sorts, balloons, kiwi fruits. That was nice. I'm glad that we, for the lack of a better term, took the time out to do a history of that. And literally just for the benefit of everyone at home, here is literally I'm just going to literally go through a little bit of a sideshow of some of the best cakes you can find. This is one of a wedding cake, which looks to have been the victim of a plane crash. That's a bit weird. Then you also just a peanut butter and chocolate cake, but gone to a ridiculous length. Then you get stuff like Alice, the Wizard of Oz. What was the program Chocky Wocky Doodah, where people would just make friggin' masterpieces out of chocolate, or some sort of like I remember there was like a cake extravaganza program that had, of all people, Rob Zombie on it at one point, and just that looks like friggin' I don't even know how to describe what that could be made of, but it looks like a sandwich actually more than anything. Then you also have a Lego design brick. Just look at that. It peels away and you get the colours of the bricks. And then you get a nice happy birthday one. That's really nice. Then you get more World's Best Cake. That looks really nice as well. They went to a lot of time of this. Looks like a top hat with just like spikes in it. Then a one for Halloween is just of Charlie Brown as well. That's quite nice. Then you get this one, You get the idea. I could literally go on for hours because just look at some of the things that people have actually went out and made, like this, for example. Or what about this one? Or another variant of the Lego cake. Then there's one of a nice weave and handbag, just an inside of lovely rich chocolate, one on its side, and one of Super Mario Brothers. That is just, and if you this literally goes on forever. In fact, I think there's only one way we could actually end this. So you know what? I'll see you guys with this presentation. So I hope all of you guys have actually enjoyed this little bit of a history throughout cake, and I hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and I'll leave you with this.
baby. You, if we dance in the blizzard, we are not getting cold. So keep on dancing, baby. Dance, 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 yeah. Dance, yeah. Baby. Dance, 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 yeah. Dance, yeah. Baby. Just keep on moving through the beat. Don't let them get the best of you. When you are under the weather, getting caught in the storm. Do you remember? I told you if we dance in the blizzard, we are not getting cold. So keep on dancing, baby.
Thank you.